Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So first and foremost, I'd like to bring into your awareness few of the terminologies and the importance of these terminologies of the Indian knowledge systems. First thing is the Tarka Vidya. The Tarka Vidya is basically the science and art of logic and debate. So here the emphasis on logic and debate. Very often, we face criticism saying that the Indian system of medicine is largely superstition based. There's no basis for any kind of logic or rationale behind it. But if you go back to the how education was imparted in our ancient times, it's largely based on Tarka Vidya, that is on logic and debate. What is also very important is that is about the Vada Vidya, that is the art of discussion. It's not that, once I think of it, I just come to an idea and then say that this is the hypothesis or the way of practice it should be. It is all about the discussion, coming to a consensus, again based on logic and debate, and then moving forward with an idea or a concept. Very importantly, connected to the Tarka Vidya and the Vada Vidya is the Sadhya. This is the thesis that is to be established. What is it that we want to establish? And that is the Sadhya. Siddhanta is basically a proposition, tenet, or a conclusion. So based on, the Tarka Vidya, the Vada Vidya, and the Sadhya that we have come up with, based on all these discussions and following logic and debate, we come to a conclusion which can be called as a Siddhanta. Hetu is the reasoning, and as you all know, when you're talking of logic and debate, reasoning becomes very important. And examples have been cited as very important in our Indian system of education, that is Udarana. So here, when we are talking of examples, they are both affirmative as well as negative examples, that is Sadharmya, Sadharmya and Vaidharmya. So here it is not that, again, coming back to the criticism that we've been facing that, Indian system is largely superstition based is not true, because even the negative learning that we have had, the negative examples have formed a very important part of our Indian system of education. So following that, the key things are the perceptions, inference and proofs, that is the pratyaksha, anumana and pramana. And I would like to lay a lot of emphasis on the anumana and the pramana as we move forward. The three kinds of debate in the Nyaya Sutra is also about Katha, Jalpa, and Vitanda. Katha is basically about a thesis and a counter thesis, that is Sadhya and a counter thesis, where it is argued by protagonists based on evidence and argument. Again, I repeat the importance of pramana, that is the evidence, and argument. Basically, it could be the Tarka Vidya or the Vada Vidya, which leads to the Katha. Jalpa is a very clever way of using ambiguous language or a false reasoning to put your opponent in a way that they lose the discussion or the debate. So it entails equivocation, and that is also very important in the Nyaya Sutra. Vitenda is again a kind of a debate, but it is characterized by absence of a counter thesis. So when you do not have a proper evidence or an argument, you end up going into a loop of discussion without being able to come out of a discussion. That is the Vitenda. So these have all been the basis of our Indian systems of education, and you would well appreciate that it is with great reasoning and logic that we are where we are today, and the Indian systems of education do hold great significance, not just for today, but for the future as well. Today, we are all being talked about interdisciplinary, education, where everything needs to be taught, at least, a few different subjects. If you go to the Jataka tales, there are 64 kalas, that is arts and crafts taught to the students. And this includes music, dance, sculpture, even trades that include agricultural sciences, metallurgy, armor making, architecture, carpentry, shipbuilding, rope making, and many others. So interdisciplinary education has been a very important part of our Indian system of education. Moving forward, I'd again want to draw to your attention the Nyaya Pramana Shastra, that is the science of correct knowledge. So again, going back to the ancient system of education, the science of correct knowledge was always given due importance. And this is based on 4 conditions, that is the subject or pramatra, the object or the prameya, the cognition or the pramiti, and the nature of the knowledge or the pramana. So the 4 pramanas for acquiring correct knowledge is pratyaksha, that is direct perception, anumana, that is inference, upamana or analogy, shabda or verbal testimony. So the logic, reasoning, the argumentation in terms of, the logic and reasoning and the evidence, including examples, have been a very important aspect of our Indian system of education. Even if I have to talk about the Indian systems of medicine, which TKDL is focused on, Charaka Samhita uses logic in medicine. And it says that, use of logic in medicine is as essential as in other subjects. Even Shushruta tells about the importance of interdisciplinary research, wherein he says a physician cannot become a physician by learning only one science. So for learning Ayurveda, he also needs to know about the plants and various other disciplines. And only when he learns all these things, he will be well versed as a physician. And that is what is the importance of not only logic, but also the interdisciplinary approach in our system of education. In today's context, if I look at Wikipedia, I know it's not the best source of information, but it is an important source of information in today's context because, when we don't know something, first thing that we do is internet search and Wikipedia comes the first result. So if I look at the academic fields and the disciplines and subjects, we have natural sciences, which covers biology, chemistry, earth sciences, physics, space sciences, including astronomy. And then we have humanities and social sciences, which covers a whole range of, subject areas, starting from anthropology to sociology. If you're talking of professional and applied sciences, again, starting from agriculture to transportation, there's a whole range of subjects and disciplines. And then the formal sciences have somehow, though appearing to be interdisciplinary, is focused more on computer sciences, logic, mathematics, and system sciences. So this is the way the academic disciplines have been, kind of categorized. And, when we are talking of interdisciplinary science, today we feel very happy that we know more than 2 subject areas, and that is largely when you consider the Indian system of medicine is more like, kind of perhaps touching upon what we had already known, but giving it a, kind of an importance which is rather very superficial. I'll move quickly on to the subject areas of research and where Indian systems traditional knowledge had a very important say in kind of projecting or taking the world to different levels of understanding as well as implementation. You must have all heard about Shushruta and as well as Charaka as great physicians from Ayurveda. I'll give you one another example of Jivaka, who was a physician to Lord Buddha. So Jivaka had been, I think there are some people who's been saying that I'm not audible. Am I audible?
You're audible, Janaviji. Completely audible.
Okay, all right.
Then I
So-
request the other Abiralji and all, could you please check your own thing or log in again? All right. Quite a few people are saying not audible.
Yeah, that is why I thought, maybe I should stop.
But we are able to hear you. I think the rest are able.
I think many are saying yes, so I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So Jivaka has been the physician to Lord Buddha, and just as Charaka or Shushruta, Jivaka was also known extensively to have promoted Ayurveda, especially for very different conditions and the different way of approach. He was the physician who brought in nasyas for headache Nasya is basically the intervention that is put in the nostrils, so as to bring in intervention that can be therapeutic for either headaches or even other brain-related disorders. Considering that he was, he was during the Buddha, he existed during the Lord Buddha period. King Bimbisara's story becomes very important. So here, King Bimbisara was, known to have bleeding hemorrhoids of fistula. So all that Jivaka had done was he put medicine under the nails and used medicated ointments and cured Bimbisara of the hemorrhoids. Another very important story is when Jivaka was traveling, he met with a business person, and the business person was complaining of, his wife having frequent headaches. And not knowing what the reason was, they had taken a lot of medication, but the wife did not get cured of the headaches. So Jivaka looked at the wife, and then he realized that it was not related to any kind of neurological disorder, but they were worms in the brain. So Jivaka was known to perform the first brain surgery. He removed 2 large worms from the brain and cured the patient of the headaches and the subsequent problems related to the existence of worms in the brains. The other very important the intervention that was brought in by Jivaka was for King Pradyod, who was known to have Pandu disease, that is, it is pernicious anemia. So this king was allergic to ghee. He did not like the taste of ghee at all. But the only way pernicious anemia can be cured is by giving the rasa, that is kashaya rasa, along with ghee. So what the story, as the story goes, Jivaka gave the intervention of the Kashaya Rasa with ghee to King Pradyot without telling him that there was ghee in that particular intervention, and ran away from the kingdom so as to save his life, because kings were known to be very ruthless when it comes to taking care of when there was anything that was not to his taste. So this was, the very important interventions from the Jivaka, the physician to Lord Buddha. Jivaka's story does not stop here. Jivaka was also known to be a great physician to Lord Buddha. So as every one of you know, Lord Buddha would travel extensively to kind of put in to kind of teach the disciplines, especially the compassion and related his teachings to all the people across. So because of all this extensive travel and all that, Jivaka realized that Lord Buddha was falling ill, and he had blocked intestines, especially the toxins in the body. But being Lord Buddha, Jivaka would not be able to give a lot of medications to him. So all he did was that he used a handful of lotuses wherein he had kept the the herbal medication on the lotuses, and he requested Lord Buddha to have this mild purgation by just smelling, the essence, inhaling the lotuses, and taking in the herbal medication from that. Using this mild purgation methods, Lord Buddha was cured of, this blocked intestines, and as well as the toxins were removed from his body. In the context of Ayurveda, okay, continuing with the stories of Ayurveda, the versatility of the Ayurveda lies in the fact that, even if you talk of one single herb, it can be used for multiple disorders. And that is the case that you see here on this particular slide, where amalaki, that is amla, can be used either as a fresh fruit or as a dried fruit. And here, Ayurveda has been known to balance the tridosha, that is the vata, pitta, and kapha. Generally, when you're talking of Ayurveda, you would be, noticing, or you'd be given an understanding that certain particular interventions can be used only in one of the prakriti type, that is vata or pitta or kapha. But here, in the case of amla, it can be used for balancing all the tridoshas, that is vata, pitta, and kapha. Say, for example, if I talk of amlaki, as per the pharmacopoeia itself, okay, the fresh fruit can be used even in Charnaprasha, and the therapeutic uses include Rakta Pitta, Amla Pitta, Prameha, and Daha. When you are talking of the dried fruit, yet again, it is the important formulations of dried fruit include the Charnaprasha, the Trilauha, the Triadigvitha, Rifalachurna, and again, it can be used for various, different therapeutic uses. So it is used as an antioxidant, it is used as an anti-inflammatory, it is used as an immunity booster, it is used as a rejuvenative tonic, rasayana. It can be also used against particular disorders such as diabetes, improving eyesight, for as a laxative for occasional constipation, maintaining hair and skin, among many other disorders. Again, the versatility of the Ayurveda lies in the fact that when you're talking of one particular disorder, say for example, on this slide I have given vitiligo, which is a skin disorder, wherein because of the loss of melanocytes, it is either a partial or a complete loss of the patches on the skin, and it is also a social stigma for people having the vitiligo disease. If you're talking of our Indian systems of medicine, consider Ayurveda, there are different decoctions or churans that is available for treating the vitiligo. If you're talking of homeopathy, though not the Indian system of medicine, but it has been used extensively in India, you have various different interventions. You talk of Unani, again, there are various different interventions, largely all herbal based. Siddha, again, which is widely practiced in Tamil Nadu, you have different herbal preparations that can be used for vitiligo. Of course, along with all these treatments, yoga becomes very important. And the traditional treatments are not limited only to the classical systems of medicine. Even like local health traditions, that is folklore knowledge, also become important in treating such disorders. Example is red clay found by the riverside when mixed with ginger juice has been used for the treatment of vitiligo. Similarly, powdered radish seeds along with vinegar has been used for the treatment of vitiligo. So that is the vastness of our Indian traditional knowledge. So we are all aware of, Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and various other Indian systems of medicine. One particular aspect which I found very interesting is the Pushpa Ayurveda. Pushpa Ayurveda is basically the Ayurveda that is related to the flowers. And the first, mention of the Pushpa Ayurveda comes from the Kalyana Karaka, an Ayurvedic treatise by Ugraditya Acharya, a Jain physician of the 19th century. So there is an old Karnataka script that provides a preparation of the Rasayana medicines with 18,000 different kinds of flowers. So again, one can understand how vast our Indian traditional knowledge has been. So here there are 4 different ways by which the flowers can be used. One is by the darshana, the other one is sparsha vidhana, third one is the alepana, the fourth one is the agrana vidhana or nasya vidhana. So what is darshana? By just concentrating at the flower, by looking at the flower, one can be alleviated of the particular disorder. Say, for example, when I talk of Rakta Mandara, that is Hibiscus rosa sinensis, the Vata Roga related joint pains can come down. Similarly, when I talk about the that is Cassia fistula rose, it is useful in constipation. What is Sparsha Vidhanam? It is basically that, there is a touch. Okay, the patient is advised to wear garments made of flowers, put on a cap which is made of flowers, bracelets, necklace, etc. Sometimes the patients are made to lie on a bed made of flowers. So this is the Sparsha Vidhanam. What is Alepana Vidhanam? Alepana Vidhanam is basically, an ingestion or application on the body. So either the flowers singly or mixed with other medicated drugs are used, ground into a pulp and applied on the body or on particular part. The fourth one is the Nasya Vidhanam or Agrana Vidhanam, where, either by smelling or by putting nasal drops, the flowers are, provided as a therapeutic intervention. So here it can range as mild, medium to, Tivra, that is super, or sometimes you have the Nirgandha, odorless Nasya Vidhanam as well. So here, the Pushpa Ayurveda continues to say that when we are talking of Ashvavidhanam, that is consuming plants by eating or drinking, you can have rasa, that is fresh extract, hima, which is by taking the essence of the plant by soaking in water, the decoction, that is khwata, arka is the distilled extract, sura is the tincture, asava is the fermented flour, and many more, okay, including churna, thaila, grita, which is by adding ghee to it. So this is just to kind of give you again, a glance of how vast our Indian traditional knowledge has been. When we are talking of flowers, I cannot but touch upon this traditional perfumery, that is Gandhayukti. So here we in our very old ancient script of the Varahamira's Brihat Samhita, because we have the English translations for people like me who are not very well versed in Sanskrit. So here, when I talk about the Shloka 10, there are delightful perfumes made from Haritaka, Shankha, Ghana, Rasa, Valaka, Jaggery, Koshas, Saileya, and Mushta seeds by mixing them in proportions indicated by multiples of 1/9. That is, they say 1 part of Haritagi, 2 parts of Shankha, 3 parts of Ghana, 4 parts of Drava, 5 parts of Ambu, 6 parts of Buddha, and 7 parts of Utpala, 8 parts of Shailaka, 9 parts of Mushta gives a particular perfume. Not only that, it doesn't stop there. They say that, when we are talking about these 9 ingredients, as each substance can be taken from 1 to 9 parts, and no two substances shall be taken by the same number of parts, the number of mixtures of perfume can be arrived at by this indication. So by using this permutation and combination, what one can arrive at is you multiply all these numbers, you get about 362,000 odd varieties of perfumes using just 9 ingredients. Again, one another way of making traditional perfumery, especially mentioned in the Varahamita's Brihat Samhitas, is about the Gandharva Nava, that is the ocean of perfumes. Here again, they list about 16 substances, and if every 4 of them are permuted variously at will, and that in 1, 2, and 3 or 4 parts, you arrive at a number of combinations, that is 1,74,720. So this is basically the the variations. So Ghana, Ushira, Guru, Dhanya, Balaka, Nagapushpa, and the various different ingredients. So if you are looking at all of this and you are able to arrive at 1, 2, 3, and 4 parts will form a perfume, you arrive at this huge number of perfumes, and each of them will have a very different fragrance. So that is again the vastness of our traditional knowledge. Talking about flowers and perfumery, using herbal medicines and all that, if I don't touch upon the traditional agricultural practices, it would become incomplete. In fact, even in the ancient times, it was mentioned that the farmers do not work for just themselves, but they work for the welfare of the other human beings. So, so in fact, the sage Parashara says, "Shrishta bhavanti krishaka dhanadhanya samvitha." May the farmers be happy, healthy, and wealthy. So there are huge number of books, like how I had mentioned about Shushruta Samhita, Charaka Samhita, in agriculture also. Some of them include Krishi Parashara, Kautilya Arthashastra, Brihat Samhita, Patanjali Mahapasha, Keladi Basavarajas, Ratnakara, Shukracharya, Shukraniti, and many more. And not only that, when we are talking of traditional knowledge, you also know that our traditional knowledge is so vast. It's not just the codified knowledge, that is texts like this that are basis of our traditional knowledge. Many of our even currently many of the tribal population and even some of the vidwans, they have the oral traditional knowledge being followed. So that is, the knowledge has been transmitted from one generation to the other by mere word of mouth. So what the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, had done is that they have made an inventory of all the oral indigenous knowledge that has been being practiced in agriculture by farmers and similar communities. So they have made 7 volumes of such books. Not only did they document such information, they've also gone ahead and validated these Indian knowledge, technical knowledge at various centers. For example, out of the, one of the books contains information about 38 validated ITKs related to agriculture. Of the 38, 23 have been validated cross-sector, that at least in more than 2 or 3 locations, whereas 15 have been single center experiments. So they have proven that our Indian traditional knowledge is valid and is important as we move forward towards co-optation and as well as using our native traditional knowledge. Sometimes integration also becomes very important. The vastness of our traditional knowledge in agriculture can also be seen from books like Vrikshayur Veda or even Varahamira's Brihat Samhita. Say, for example, when I talk about hard seed germination, say for example, if I talk of tamarind or any other seed having a very hard pericarp, okay, and it cannot be germinated easily. What they say is that you can grow an excellent creeper having these kind of seeds with hard pericarp if you feed, if it is fed with water mixed with Triphala. Triphala is basically a combination of 3 roots, Terminalia cebulla, Terminalia velerica, and Philanthus umbilica, and sesame seeds, barley, and black gram, and it's then soaked with turmeric. So when you use this combination, even seeds with high hard pericarp can germinate. So this is from Rickshire Ayurveda. And a very important aspect, at least to me, coming from a modern science background, I was, pretty impressed to know from Varahamira's Brihat Samhita that even way back in those days, they had been able to carry trees from one to the other by grafting technology. Whereas I believe grafting is a very new advancement in agriculture, starting with the industrial revolution of the recent time. So here in Brihat Samhita, it says trees can be taken to other countries and grafted on others if they are smeared from root to the stem with ghee, antapagon, sesame, honey, vidanga, milk, and cow dung. So you can, well appreciate how vast and important our Indian traditional knowledge is. Moving forward, I gave you an example, right? That our Indian traditional knowledge is not limited only to the classical text. It is also related to the oral traditional knowledge, that is the veterinary science, tribal knowledge related to veterinary science and animal husbandry. This is again from one of the books from the ICAR. So, for example, the foot and mouth disease is a highly prevalent disease in cattle. And typically, what they do is that they give the modern conventional therapy of Baxibet regularly these days. But if you go back to our traditional, method, especially from a tribal, from the tribal farmers of Navapada district in Orissa, what they do is that they, treat the foot and mouth disease in cattle by applying harida and beheda powder along with water. So what do? They use 500 grams each of harida and beheda powder. They mix it with 2.5 liters of water. And after boiling it, they apply this medication twice a day. So what ICR had done is that, they have taken about, 5 different groups. One is the untreated control. The other one is this particular ITK method from the farmers of Orissa, from the Navapada district. Then there is again another traditional medication, which is using the root barks of the Kerala tree. The paste is used. One another traditional method is applying neem oil twice a day. And then you have the conventional treatment of Baxibet, 0.5 gram daily for 3 days. Based on the experiment that was being conducted by the West Bengal University of Animal and Fishery Sciences, Kolkata, along with the KVK Kalahandi, Bhavanipatna, Orissa, the conclusion that was arrived at is that the Harita and Bahita powder formulation was found to be as effective as the conventional treatment. While the conventional treatment took 4 to 5 days, using our traditional method, It just took 5 to 6 days to for recovery. So the difference is all in terms of the time, and all we are doing is using natural interventions instead of any synthetic medication. Again, one another important aspect of agriculture is the animal health. I touched upon the in the previous slide of foot and mouth disease in the cattle. One another very important thing, especially when you go into the upper Himalayas region, is the toxicity related to the lantana camera. And here it is supposed to, this particular lantana camera is supposed to be the 10 worst weeds of the world. And it's a highly invasive species. So when the cattle go in for browsing, they see that there is, fatal poisoning of these animals, which includes, skin disease, photosensitization, as well as constipation. So the local interventions are that they drench the animals with sour lassi, and also sometimes the lassi is to the lassi they add mustard oil and amla, and this is the way the cattle are treated. So here the poisoning is by ingestion of the leaves of the lantana camara. So, some of the local farmers, they also use the lantana root extract to cure the poisoning. Sometimes to kind of help the poison to come out of the body, they cut the apical portion of the ear. And once the bleeding is, happens, they then apply mud to stop the wound, the healing to happen on the wound. And this way, the poison is removed from the animal's body. When we talk of agriculture, the talk again becomes incomplete if I don't touch upon the water conservation methods. It is impossible in a 45-minute presentation to tell you how vast our water conservation methods have been. We have largely, relied on conserving rainwater and as well as the flood waters. And based on the region, of our country, we had important structures, for that aligns with the climate, aligns with the rainfall, aligns with the geographical region, the soil, the local materials available, etc. I would request you for each of my slide. I have also given the source of information. So people who are interested in knowing more about this particular slide and information related to it, I would encourage all of you to please go back to the original source and then read more about it. So I'm just giving you one, a few examples. If I talk about, the Ladakh region, what they do is that they create zincs, that is small tanks that collect melted glacier waters through channels. When I talk of the Western Himalayas, there are different ways, that is Kul, Naula, Kathris, and Khur. When what is Kul is a water channel found in precipitous mountain areas. When I talk of Nala, it is small wells or ponds. Kathris are more of structures carved out in hard, rough mountain regions. Kul is temporary headwall across a khud, that is a ravine. So when I talk about the northeastern regions where there is heavy rainfall, you have pond-like structures called the Zabo. When you also have a long water channel called the Chio Uzihi. And then, of course, the bamboo drip irrigation because of the high level of bamboo cultivation there. So there are various different methods of water conservation, again, taking care of, collecting rainwater and floodwater. And it also talks about the sustainable use of water that is made available by nature. Talking of agriculture, again, besides water, if I don't talk about food and nutrition, it becomes incomplete. Again, there is immense information related to our traditional knowledge. I'm sure all of you would appreciate this because each of us, depending on the region that we come in, depending on the community that we come in, we have different varieties of foods. And in today's context, I think this, foods have become an occasion only during the festivals. And we have just finished our Diwali festival. I'm sure each of you would have had, a large amount of our traditional foods. Talking of food, the important books that relate to food and nutrition is the Pakadarpana of Maharaja Nala, Supashastra by Mangara Sathu, Bhojana Kutuhala by Raghunatha Ganesha Namahasta, Kshema Kutuhala by Kshemesh Sarma, and Shiva Tattva Ratnakara by Vyasavaraja. If I talk about only the Kshema Kutuhala, It is talking about the dietetics and the culinary art, that is Paka Shastra or Paka Kala. And this particular book has 12 chapters in it called the Utsavas. It talks about, and if you look at each of the chapter, you would be amazed with the kind of categorization of information. And let me tell you, these are all very, very old books, ancient books of ancient times. And coming back to the Kshema Kutuhala, you have the first chapter is focused on 7 types of Dravya Pakas. The second one is focuses only on the utensils for cooking. The third one is about the qualities of the physician and the cook. Please bear in mind, it not only talks of what the cook should entail, what should be the qualities of the physician, because these are all also related to the food for the kings and the queens and their higher authorities. Then you also have foods that related to seasons and the routines to follow during this time. And what is the daily routine prescribed? It also talks about non-vegetarian food like meat food, fish, and different types of vegetables. And there is a particular chapter, that is chapter 9, that is focused on food preparations from flowers. Then you have cooked foodstuffs that is described, appetizers are mentioned, and the 12th chapter is focused on dairy products and other drinks. And just to give you an example, when I talk of Pakadarpanam, there is an example of how the soup is made, that is dal is made. And it is not a simple dal like, what we are talking to here. Many of these, the food preparations that have been mentioned is not mentioned only for the kind of giving the food nutrition, but also in the context of, alleviation of diseases as well. So here, when I talk about this dal that is mentioned in the Pakadarpana, it tells about, ingredients such as kurati, urad, batwas, arhar, तथा चना दाल आदि को सूप के अच्छी तरह साफ करें और पाचक भूसी रहित मूंग आदि से दाल को समान भाग जल के साथ बटोले में पकावे. So it tells you how the details is given, how to cook each of it. Okay. And then after telling, what is to be done, even for the fragrance, उसमें सुगंध लाने के लिए पुनः उचित मात्रा में हींग छोड़ दें. So it also talks about, fragrance of the food. Okay. And then after all this, it also talks about using karpur and various other sugandhat pushpon se. And then it says that this particular food is, swadish for even for a raja, for a king also. Okay. So that is the kind of context in which such foods are prepared. Another very important example is about, Kushna Kurati Ras Bharane Ka Vidhi. And here it talks about this Kushna Kurati Ras, wherein it talks about marich, that is pepper, lasun, hing, chitraktaka, sindha, namak ko. So it has been, we talked about sindha namak has been used even in our ancient times. And here what it says is that this particular preparation is good for Vat Vikar ko dur karta hai, कफ विकार को जीत लेता है तथा वात रोग को शोषण करता है. So you can understand the food that we eat has an effect in terms of our prakriti, and this particular food has been known to be important for the three doshas. I talked about the importance of utensils and also the eating format. So here, this particular example that I am giving here is not from an ancient source, because I couldn't get the original, reference to the original classical text related to food and nutrition. But here there is an important article in the Journal of Ethnic Foods. And the reason why I'm also mentioning about the references is that we need not believe that, all our traditional knowledge is available only in our traditional text. Sometimes it's available in the form of such articles and papers. So we need to, kind of keep our eyes open for any information that relates to our traditional knowledge in the area of our interest. Say, for example, I did talk about the utensils, right? I talked about, in the particular Paka Darpanam, the second chapter is on the utensils for cooking. So this particular article talks about all the utensils, how it could be stone based, it could be copper based, it could be brass based, it could be iron based, or it could be any other material. But when we are talking of eating formats, each of us, depending on the region where we come from, the eating habits also become very important. If I talk about the South, largely we eat on a plantain leaf, okay? And this particular eating on a plantain leaf not only, is cordial and all that, it also stimulates the digestive power. It is useful when we are tired and also have gout. When I talk of the bastard teak leaf, that is Butia monospora leaf, that is a palish leaf, it alleviates vata and kapha, and it also treats ascites and abdominal tumor, kills dyspnea. When I talk about the castor bean leaf, that is Ricinus communis, it alleviates vata and kapha, it kills worms, it treats fevers, and it is also beneficial for the eyes and digestion. There are many other examples that I have given here. So each of the format on which we have eaten, okay, also adds to a particular wellness or health conditions. And of course, in today's context, using a plate is also useful because it's more about, sustaining and use of water while being, conscious on the reusability and also the environment. So talking of plates, heating and all that, metallurgy again becomes very important. I'm sure all of you know because in any places one would not have missed the Qutub Minar or many other important areas where our metallurgical tools held still. One very important example is about the wood shield. So many of you might have heard about the story of Damascus Ford and how the wood shield became the basis for the Damascus Ford. And in today's context, all of us are very, happy about thinking of this carbon steels, high carbon, ultra high carbon steels. Okay, this wood steel of our ancient times is an example, a classical example of high grade ultra high carbon steel, and this was produced by the crucible processes in South India. So the preparation is that, first you prepare porous iron, you hammer it while it is very hot to release the slag. Then you break it up and seal it with wooden chips. So that is the basis by which the carbon gets into the steam. And so in a clay container, this is all done. Then by heating it until the pieces of iron absorb the carbon from the wood and is melted, the steel thus produced will have a uniform composition. And this wood steel is known to have carbon content of 1 to 1.6%. And this could be heated, forged into bars, or used for various different articles, including the Damascus forge. So this, as I had mentioned, the classical example of the use of wood steel is the Damascus sword, where the Damascus sword is so good that it not only can cut the trees off, okay, the wood off, but even if you throw a thin layer of silk, it can cut the silk without leaving any blemishes. So that is the versatility of the Damascus swords. Talking of the alloys, not just about steel, but even the alloys, India had a marvelous practices in the past. If I talk of only one small region of Kerala, the bronzes from Kerala are exemplary in its own kind. When I talk of the Aranmula mirror, okay, it is a mirror where it is a metal-based mirror. There is no glass in it, okay. And what is the basis of that particular metal mirror? It has tin in it, it has zinc in it, it has phosphorus, it has iron, it has nickel, it has copper. No glass is used. And the clarity in which you can see the face is amazing. Of course, in today's context, it's a very expensive too, but that is the versatility of our ancient practice. Then there is another example of the Kadavalur eating bowl. Again, it is formed by the repeated thermomechanical process. The context of this is the alloy, where the alloy is made of tin, it is made of lead, it is made of zinc, phosphorus, and copper. Okay. You also have the Swamimalai and Mannar icons, vessels, and bells, and this is made by the gloss wax process, which is known to be the oldest metal shaping technique from India. So the three main metals that are used in the alloy is copper, brass, and lead. And the Panchaloha idols, of course, have copper, gold, silver, brass, and lead. So this is all from a small region of our country, and this is all about the different kinds of alloys by permutations and combinations of different other metals. You can arrive at different alloys which have, amazing properties, and in terms of its malleability, and then mix in the context of iron making, it has immense potential and value. When you're talking of all those idols and all that, architecture becomes very important. It is a living tradition because the architecture can be seen in even now. Okay, you take the Tanjavur Brihadishwar temple or the Sri Rangam Lord Ranganatha temple or the Jagannath temple in Puri, or even the temples in the north. Okay, each of them have their own architectures, and the excellence lies in the perfect balance of the parts, not only the parts, but the whole as well. And here it is not just the architecture, the way the sculptures are made, the images are kept at different places, the inscriptions of the wall, all add value to the architecture of the temple. In fact, as an example of the of the Tanjavur Brihadishwara temple, there's a lot of work that is being done by the IGNCA. In fact, they have a DVD made, multimedia DVD made on the Brihadishwara temple. If you can go visit the website of the IGNC, you'll get all this information. And also they have DVDs available which you can buy. And here they talk about, the huge linga, how was it made, the topmost gopuram that has been made out of a single stone. What are the sculptures? How was the Vimana made? What is on the upper floor? What is on the lower floor? It also talks about the Bharatanatyam Shastra. As the story goes, there were 108 stone blocks that were left to be carved on the different karanas of the dance. But it appears that after the 81st, it stopped, and the remaining were left untouched. So perhaps after some time, the activity must have stopped because of the change in the ruler. And the architecture is not just related to the temple architecture. Even if we are talking of different other things, it need not be only stone based. You take the example of the Tabo Mud Monastery in Spiti Valley of Himachal Pradesh. This particular monastery was made in the 10th century, and this is a mud building made of cob. Okay, all they have done is blended raw earth, water, and fibrous material like the straw. Even today, it stands despite the very difficult weather conditions of the Himachal Pradesh. And here, not only that, it also contains a sustainable architecture. Inside the monastery, you can see frescoes and tankas, that is scroll paintings that are adorning the wall, and you can still see them there. And this is also called the Ajanta of the Himalayas. One another example would be about the traditional bungas. Okay, the bungas are basically again mud structures, okay, mud bricks or interior mud bricks made of tree branches packed with mud. And the roof is supported by a vertical post on a single wooden beam across the walls. And why is this bunga important? You might have all heard about the deadly earthquake that happened in the Bhuj area in 2001, right? So as a part of, bringing back life there in the Bhuj area, the bungas were, created, were built. So for each family, two bungas were created. Like that, 1,400 houses were built. So our traditional methods came handy in rebuilding Bhuj area soon after the earthquake. Not only during this Bhuj earthquake of 2001, during the Kosi floods of Bihar in 2008 also, the bungas were created, two model villages were made, 15,000 houses were built based on that, and this facilitated about 1 lakh houses, and the families were able to get back to their lives by this method. Traditional knowledge came handy for the protection and rejuvenation of life for those affected by the natural calamities. So all great going. We have had, extensive and very significant, initiatives and interventions of the past, be it food, be it medicine, be it health, be it agriculture, be it metallurgy, and many others. But what is most important for us is also the language, the ability to communicate. India is known to be very diverse, and despite the diversity, of course, we are unique and important as well. And there are various languages. As per a document by Adrija Raichadri, there's about 600 potentially endangered languages in India. So the number of languages will be much, much more. And what very rightly Ganesh Devi says is that each dead language takes away a culture system from us. It's very true. Taking cognizance of it, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs endangered tribal languages to preserve and promote the same. So what they have done is that the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, along with support by the state governments, identified 82 language primers from Tripura, Orissa, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Telangana, and West Bengal. You can, look at all the languages that are being covered. So this is to kind of preserve the languages and help capacity building in these languages as well. So people who are from, the languages background can have a look into this and promote IKS to rejuvenate these languages, art and culture. Similar to languages, there are different art forms across the country, and 52 of them have been identified, as art form that needs to be protected from disappearance. Some of them include the Ipan art, Assamese miniature painting, the Kurumba painting, the Kerala mural painting, the Nirmal painting, the Pattachitra painting from Orissa, and as well as West Bengal, the Pichwai painting, Tanjore glass painting, and many others. So again, there are a lot of efforts going on in this direction as well. It's not just our traditional knowledge that is very important, even the cultural expressions become very important. For example, if I talk of performing arts, the dance, music, and theater, they were not just dance forms for, kind of entertainment. They had been used as means for communicating. And this communication can also cover societal themes such as, human rights, health, environment, literacy, family planning, and many more. For example, the Yakshagana from Karnataka has been used as a case study wherein the folk theatre form was used for conveying environmental consciousness. Similarly, Bharatanatyam is being used not only as a reflection of the past, but also as a societal, theme to kind of talk about matters that, it could be about women empowerment or social harmony or many other things. The Indian classical music therapy has been used in many different forms, including mental disorders. So these are all, kind of only examples and glimpses to say that our Indian traditional knowledge is vast and diverse, and it can be used in various different connotations and as well as context to kind of help upon not only the societal aspects, but also in terms of the economic development. Kind of summarize my talk. I think I took a very long time, but this was necessary to say that, our traditional knowledge is very vast, it's very diverse, and it spans very several domains. The two major forms is a codified form, that is the classical text that I have mentioned. The classical text or the codified form could include manuscripts and scriptures and paintings as well. The non-codified form is typically the oral traditional knowledge that has been passed on from one generation to the other through mere word of mouth. The Guru Sishya Parampara, of course, was the key way by which education was imparted. And also imparted at homes, within families and country and communities. In fact, when you talk of the folklore or the local health traditions, it is not must that, within the family it runs. The older generation person might not pass it on to his son or grandson, but may pass that knowledge on to somebody else in the community, so they carry forward the knowledge in the right sense and for the right reasons. And our education, the system of education is very important because it is based on logic, reasoning, and debate. As I said, the thesis, the sadhya, the proposition or conclusion, siddhanta, hetu are important verticals on which education was imparted. Udharana, that is example, what I gave here today is only Udharana to kind of say that we have had affirmative examples of the past and we still continue to have that. And I think we need to believe in our own traditional knowledge to move forward towards betterment of our country and betterment of ourselves. The sadharma and vaidharma become very important. In today's context, we don't take it for granted, whatever is given to us. We want to understand the logic and debate, and it becomes important. There's no point in, just a blank or, Vithandavadya towards, criticism that we face in terms of our traditional knowledge. The Tarka Vidya and Vada Vidya, that is the art of logic and debate and the art of discussion become very important. And for this, the four pramanas, that is pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, and shraddha become very important. We are all, human beings that have evolved with time. We believe the context, the evidence of our time is important in accepting whatever is given to us. And in today's context, while we know that India has had a huge and valuable and vast traditional knowledge in the past, today's context, today's pramana becomes important. And as researchers who are gathered here today, I think we need to kind of believe that, our information of the past needs to be looked for evidence of the current times, and your efforts in this direction would be truly appreciated. Thanks for the government of India. The traditional knowledge is seeing great rejuvenation and also importance. The National IPR policy of 2016 talks about traditional knowledge and specifically the traditional knowledge digital library. So far, as I said, we were focused on Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, and Siddha. They have asked us to recommended us to expand into other areas. And so far, we have been giving access only to the patent offices. They say it could be, provided for further R&D as well. Also, in the importance of, understanding, preserving, and promoting our oral traditional knowledge, the National IPR policy recommends that we document oral traditional knowledge, but making sure that the life of the communities and the people involved are not compromised. In the context of course, the World Intellectual Property Organization, the last recommendation is to include the KDL as part of the PCT minimum documentation. You'll get to know more about this in the days to come during the workshop. The National Education Policy 2020, I don't need to mention much about this group because you've already gone through a training program. The knowledge of India will become an essential part of our school curriculum wherever relevant. It's not just the codified traditional knowledge, but also the tribal knowledge and the indigenous and traditional ways of learning will be covered. And here the tribal ethno-medicinal practices, forest management, traditional crop cultivation, national farming, all become part of the NEP 2020. Very recently, we concluded the G20 New Leaders Declaration. Again, herein they mention culture as a transformative driver for the SDGs. So here it is about protecting the living cultural heritage, including the intellectual property, and making sure that there is no over-commercialization and misappropriation of such living heritage with regards to the sustainability. So guided by the government policies, the IKS division and the CSIRT KDL unit, we are working towards protecting, preserving, and promoting traditional knowledge systems of India. And we request each of you to participate in this effort. Thank you so much.